Okay, so this is chapter 11. Will we see you again soon, Peter? So remember in chapter 10, they're in the house getting ready to be together, and there's another family there with a baby and an old man. The German soldiers come, they start getting very suspicious and they think something's going wrong. Maybe they're hiding Jewish people. And eventually, Mama tells them something that makes them leave, and they eventually leave. And at the end of chapter 10, they're about to open the casket, the thing in the big box in the middle of the room that the Germans thought was suspicious. Chapter 11, will we see you again soon, Peter? Anna Maria blinked. Across the dark room, she saw Ellen, too, peering into the narrow wooden box in surprise. There was no one in the casket at all. Instead, it seemed to be stuffed with folded blankets and articles of clothing. Peter began to lift the things out and distribute and give them to the silent people in the room. He handed heavy coats to the man and wife and another to the old man with the beard. It will be very cold, he murmured. Put them on. He found a thick sweater for Mrs. Rosen, Ellen's mum, and a woolen jacket for Ellen's father. After a moment of searching, rummaging through the folded things, he found a smaller winter jacket and handed it to Ellen. Anna Maria watched as Ellen took the jacket in her arms and looked at it. It was patched and worn. It was true that there had been few new clothes for anyone during the recent years. But still, Ellen's mother had always managed to make clothes for her daughter, often using old things that she was able to take apart and refashion in a way that made them seem brand new. Never had Ellen worn anything so shabby and old. But she put it on, pulled it around her, and buttoned the mismatched buttons. Peter, his arms full of odd pieces of clothing, looked toward the silent couple with the infant. I'm sorry, he said to them. There is nothing for the baby. I'll find something, Mama said quickly. The baby must be warm. She left the room and was back in a moment with Kirsty's thick red sweater. Here, she said softly to the mother. It will be much too big, but that will make it even warmer for him. The woman spoke for the first time. Her, she whispered. She's a girl. Her name is Rachel. Mama smiled and helped her direct the sleeping baby's arms into the sleeves of the sweater. Together, they buttoned the heart-shaped buttons. Oh, how Kirsty loved that sweater with its heart buttons, until the tiny child was completely covered, encased in the warm red wool, like a big jacket. Her eyelids fluttered, but she didn't wake up. Peter reached into his pocket and took something out. He went to the parents and leaned down toward the baby. He opened the lid of the small bottle in his hand. How much does she weigh? Peter asked. She was 7 pounds when she was born, the young woman replied. She's gained a little bit of weight, but not much. Maybe she weighs 8 pounds now, no more. A few drops will be enough then. It has no taste. She won't even notice. The mother tightened her arms around the baby and looked up at Peter, pleading. Please, no, she said. She always sleeps all night. Please, she doesn't need it. I promise. She won't cry. Peter's voice was firm. We cannot take a chance, he said. He inserted the dropper of the bottle into the baby's tiny mouth and squeezed a few drops of liquid onto her tongue. The baby yawned and swallowed. The mother closed her eyes. Her husband gripped her shoulder. Next, Peter removed the folded blankets from the coffin, one by one, and handed them around. Carry these with you, he said. You will need them later for warmth. Anna Maria's mother moved around the room and gave each person a small package of food, the cheese and bread and apples that Anna Maria had helped her prepare in the kitchen hours before. Finally, Peter took a paper-wrapped packet from inside his own jacket. He looked around the room and at the assembled people, now dressed in bulky winter clothes, and then motioned to Mr. Rosen, who followed them to the hall. Anna Maria could overhear and listen to their conversation. Mr. Rosen, Peter said, I must get this to Henrik, but I might not see him. I am going to take the others only to the harbour, and they will go to the boat alone. I want you to deliver this without fail. It is of great importance. There was a moment of silence in the hall, and Anna Maria knew that Peter must be giving the packet to Mr. Rosen. Anna Maria could see it protruding from Mr. Rosen's or sticking out of Mr. Rosen's pocket when he returned to the room and sat down again. She could see that, too, that Mr. Rosen had a puzzled and confused look. He didn't know what the packet contained. He had not asked. It was one more time, Anna Maria realized, when they protected one another by not telling. If Mr. Rosen knew, he might be frightened and scared. If Mr. Rosen knew, he might be in danger. So he had not asked, and Peter had not explained. Now, Peter said, looking at his watch, I will lead the first group. You and you and you. He pointed and gestured to the old man and to the young people with their baby. Inge, he said. Anna Maria realized that it was the first time that she had heard Peter Nilsson call her mother by her first name. Before, it had always been Mrs. Johansson, or in the old days, during the merriment and excitement of getting married to Lise, the engagement, it had been occasionally Mama. Now it was Inge. It was as if he had moved beyond his own youth and had taken his place in the world of adults. Her mother nodded and waited for his instructions. You wait 20 minutes and then bring the Rosens. Don't come sooner. We must be separate on the path so there is less chance of being seen. Mrs. Johansson nodded again. Come directly back to the house after you have seen the Rosens safely to Henrik. Stay in the shadows and on the back path. You know that, of course. By the time you get the Rosens to the boat, Peter went on, I will be gone. As soon as I deliver my group, I must move on. There is other work to be done tonight. He turned to Anna Maria. So I will say goodbye to you now. Anna Maria went to him and gave him a hug. But we will see you again soon, she asked. I hope so, Peter said. Very soon. Don't grow much more, or you will be taller than I am, little Longlegs. Anna Maria smiled, but Peter's comment was no longer the light-hearted fun of the past. It was only a brief grasp at something that had gone. Peter kissed Mama wordlessly. He said nothing. Then he wished the Rosens Godspeed, and he led the others through the door. Mama, Anna Maria, and the Rosens sat in silence. There was a slight commotion outside the door, and Mama went quickly to look out. In a moment she was back. It's all right, she said in response to their looks. The old man fell, he stumbled, but Peter helped him up. He didn't seem to be hurt. Maybe just his pride, she added, smiling a bit. It was an odd word, pride. Anna Maria looked at the Rosens sitting there, wearing the misshapen, ill-fitting clothing, holding ragged blankets folded in their arms, their face drawn and tired. She remembered the earlier, happier times, when Mrs. Rosen, her hair neatly combed and covered, lighting the Sabbath candles, the Jewish candles, saying the ancient prayer. And back when Mr. Rosen was sitting in the big chair in their living room, studying his thick books, correcting papers, adjusting his glasses, looking up now and then to complain good-naturedly about the lack of good light. She remembered Ellen and the school play, moving confidently across the stage, her gestures sure and her voice clear. All of those things, those sources of pride, the candlesticks, the books, the daydreams of theatre, had been left behind in Copenhagen. They had nothing with them now. There was only the clothing of unknown people for warmth, the food from Henrik's farm for survival, and the dark path ahead through the woods to freedom. Anne-Maria realized, though, that she had not really been told that Uncle Henrik was going to take them in his boat across the sea to Sweden. She knew how frightened Mrs. Rosen was of the sea, its width, depth, its cold. She knew how frightened Ellen was of the soldiers with their guns and boots who were certainly looking for them. And she knew how frightened they all must be of the future. But their shoulders were as straight as they had been in the past, in the classroom, on the stage, at the Sabbath table. So there were other sources too of pride. And they had not left everything behind. Oh my gosh. So this is the end of the chapter, of chapter 11, and everyone's together in the room, and they look inside the casket, and it's actually extra clothes and blankets. Why? because Uncle Henrik, is going to take them on his boat to Sweden, where they will be safe. Remember, the Jews are the ones that are being killed and chased. And so it's a very interesting and kind of intense chapter. Anyway.